Welcome to Catalysis Human Being, coming to you from the studios of Catalysis Centrale. My name is Kyle Kesterson, and we're here with Human Being, where we invite healers and wisdom keepers, really masters of the mind, body, and soul, to share ways to find balance, to thrive, really contribute to a healthier world. Today, I'm excited to have this opportunity to sit down and speak with Charles Michel on a topic dear to my heart and to my belly, food. Welcome, Charles.
Thank you, Kyle, for the invitation. I'm really excited for where this topic is going to guide us today. I'm excited to go deep.
Let's go deep. So I know Charles to be a teacher, an artist, a philosopher. Some might call him a wizard. I would. A pioneer, certainly an inspiration, but above all, a friend. Just want to say thank you for taking the time. And, for those who might be unfamiliar with you and your work, how would you summarize your mission and your relationship with food?
I think my relationship to food has been evolving from a very kind of standard approach to cooking, culinary arts, being a chef, to then realizing that the amount of beauty and complexity that comes together when a plate of food is presented in front of us can encompass all of our relations. It can encompass our relationship to the living world, to our bodies, to spirits, to the future of humanity. I deeply believe, and this is where I feel like I have a mission that I want to participate in a way, is that I do feel that the evolution of humanity and the evolution of our planet depends on the way we eat, and the future is basically created from food systems, because it is our most intimate connection to the living world. We breathe and we connect with the oceans and the forests. We eat and we connect with the social fabric and the environmental fabric of the world around us in ways that are much more profound than we can even imagine. So I see myself as a translator, a bridge, an educator, to try and realize just how profound the power of food is.
So what you're saying is you like a good meal. And we're here to just define what good holistically means in this conversation. Mm-hmm. So how would you, with somebody who spends so much time really cultivating the consciousness awareness around our palate and our relationship, not just on the intake and your artistry with flavor, but in our relationship with people, how does that, when you go out into the world, shape how you see and experience the world through the lens of flavor and eating, the flavors of different cultures, the aromas in a market, the texture of food, the ritual of meal preparation, and just the quality of energy that meal holds? What's reality like for you?
The more one kind of does the inner study of the senses, the more one understands a particular very subtle cue of an aroma in an ingredient that is a bit fresher than another one. It's a non-verbal language. It's a chemical, physical language by which I guess I can decipher the world in a way that is a bit, more complex and more holistic. Now, that doesn't mean, and this is something I get often, is like, oh, it's so hard to cook for you, or oh, you must be so, complicated to, when it comes to your choices. And really, no, I think, because try to infuse everything with philosophy and with humility, in the sense that the first feeling, the first emotion, or the most important emotion that I try to feel as often as possible is gratitude. Even if something is not perfect, right? In a restaurant, let's say, and you're expecting a certain dish to be a certain way and you're paying a certain amount, when something is not kind of at its peak, I feel empathy to the cooks in the kitchen. I feel empathy towards the complexities of the world that we've designed, that make our distance with the earth bigger and bigger, that makes the distance with the life of the animals that we consume bigger and bigger. And I'm just grateful and in acceptance of what is. And this is kind of the hardest work and the most profound work is just to try and be very sharp at understanding what is happening, but also be very kind of detached from the outcome. Because in a way, the world that we live in is so complex and full of paradox that one can easily just feel sad for how things happen. Like, um, a piece of flesh, of animal flesh on the plate, may be the greatest love language for a person, right? And I can feel it in a taco stand in Mexico City. And at the same time, I could understand the same piece of flesh as, well, there's a crime in the back. This is an industry that is producing methane, that is driving us to extinction through climate change. And so, what do I choose to feel in regards to the polar complexity and the polar realities of a particular dish in front of me? What is my stance? Do I say no and I don't want your love, lady, because it involves the death of an animal, or do I connect with her and just try to and accept and be grateful for that, and in a way let go of my integrity if I am trying to reduce my meat intake for environmental reasons? So there's I feel like philosophy is a life savior, because it allows for us to just live in more harmony and without fighting the world that we live in and that we inherit, which we don't have control over in many cases.
I'm just imagining myself in your shoes, which are big shoes to fill, by the way. If I'm walking around as Charles Michel, just the web of interrelated connections. So sitting down, and when somebody's doing the act of putting the food to the face, you can truly see the quality of presence that is unfolding. Just intuitively now, I'm just sensing you just see this web of how all of these things are moving while people are just like feeding themselves and just trying to get through the meal.
Mhm. Yeah.
You say that's accurate?
Yeah, I guess so. At the same time, eating is like breathing. It's almost an automatic act, and there is unconscious in the automatism behind eating. It's a physiological need, but at the same time, it's something that we do since the moment we're born. We cry for the breast of our mother, and the first food is the milk that is sweet, that is umami, that has everything we need. And from that moment, we are all incredibly wise in eating. And this is something that I connect with sensory education in a like, or the need for sensory education, is that our senses evolved for millions of years, um, to to be incredibly wise. But if we're not even aware of the type of muscles that we have, how can we be wise at using them? Taste, for example, could be the oldest of all senses in life on Earth. There is a theory that goes that in the primordial soup, the first living forms were actually sensing their environment in this kind of hot soup of molecules. And by bumping, with the life's solvent, which is water, right? And bumping with certain things, and then sometimes you would feel something that would click, right? And that would mean energy, condensed forms of energy, meaning life, meaning the promise of more life for the consciousness that was sensing that environment in particular. And then when that clicked, there's a mouth that would absorb that nutrition, chemical sensing, right, absorb what is good and throw out what is not needed. So you have the principles of life as a mouth, a digestive tube, and an anus in a cell. This is how it could be like simplified, let's say. So from there, taste has evolved maybe for 4 billion years since life exists on Earth. And taste is something that we confuse with flavor on a daily basis. When people say, oh, this taste of strawberry, what's the taste of strawberry? The strawberry that you put in your mouth only has generally 2 tastes, sweet and acidic. That's the chemical composition. Sweet indicates the presence of sugars and condensed forms of energy that our bodies will transform into electric pulses in our bodies and in our nervous system. And acidity, which will bring certain benefits for digestion. When we say I taste strawberry, we're actually talking about the aromas of strawberries, which there probably, I'm not sure exactly, but I think it's about a dozen of volatile compounds in strawberries. And that is our nose that is perceiving them, not our mouths. So there's a very basic ignorance because we're not taught food at schools. And that's, I think, a massive missing kind of curriculum in how to be human and how to human, right? Growing food, eating food, cooking food, the philosophy of the living and our relationship to it. We're completely missing that part of the equation of how to be human nowadays. So what my world is is just seeing, I think, textures of the living world that because of our lack of education, generally we don't experience. And what I feel is just like a massive missed opportunity for folks to be more connected with the living world and with their bodies. Because if I understand that something is umami, I know because of my intuitive and empirical kind of training, I know that it carries protein. And so I'm not looking for protein in some kind of cognitive concept of flesh, of amino acids, of this segmented, overly scientific approach to eating and modern nutrition, which is, I think, just obsolete. I know through my sensation that there's umami in here, and I know that there's proteins, and I want more of that, and I crave that. And so when I don't have enough umami in my diet, I'm not going to feel balanced. And so where do I find that umami? I can find it in miso soup. I can find it in beans. I can find it in so many other things that are not just meats.
You said taste is something we confuse for flavor. I think this might be the title of your next book. I think there's so much there. Is there a moment where your relationship with food changed, where you were impacted by that caused a change within you? Why was that significant?
Yeah, I trained in very kind of military cooking school in France and worked in Michelin star restaurants, and it got very quickly very, very violent, very aggressive in kitchens, which is an industrialized form of cooking, which is the service as a kind of translation of monarchic times, and a lot of things that we inherit from colonialism and from monarchy and from industrialism that end up shaping the modern restaurant in a way. And I was really frustrated with the part of feeding others but not getting the reciprocity, the irony. I would get a salary at the end of the month, but I was giving so much love, and of course, people in the kitchens give so much love and so much care to the craft, and I felt disconnected from the recipient, and there's something broken there that was very heavy on me, and which is why I quit working in Michelin star restaurants. And there was one moment after that where I traveled to the Sierra Nevada in Colombia, and I met indigenous communities, First Nations, that were still living in pretty much pre-Columbian ways on many aspects. And I remember being invited by this family, my friend Dwewe Kongumu, and I slept over. And the morning, his wife went harvest some carrots and got some eggs from the hen house, and she just grated some carrots and poured the eggs on it. No, like a tiny bit of salt, but no butter, no olive oil, no nothing, just those 2 ingredients. And I remember being like, not having much expectation about. I mean, of course, it was fresh, and I was very grateful. But when I tasted that, I immediately started crying, and I had such a profound emotion. And I was like, "What's happened to me? What is this?" And I asked like twice, like, "Is this just carrots and eggs?" And it was like, "Yeah." There's a prayer that goes in putting the carrot in the ground. There's a prayer that goes in harvesting it. There is a good relationship with the animals, and somehow I felt that there was much more there than just carrots and eggs. It was so delicious, like one of the most delicious things. And I was like, "This is, it's not even served on a plate. It's nothing like the standards of what I was taught good food was, and yet I was having the most delicious, nutritious kind of nourishment from the earth directly there." And I understood that at that moment, that flavor and good food was much more than just the physical and molecular properties of food. Beyond just calling it quality ingredients, there was something else that I've been for the past 12, 13 years since then trying to understand and decode. And in my own practice, create that magic around food that, of course, has to do with the proximity to the land. But I think there's something, thinking of Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy, there is chi in food, there is life force in food. And the closer you are to the source, the more that life force is present very subtly to your senses, but also to something else that is not within the realm of the five canonical senses, that touches you and that nourishes you. And it is the way the cook that I consider to be a translator, a bridge between nature and human civilization, an interpret of the flesh, the soft matter of nature. There is that interpretation that plays a very important role, and the ritual around it, not just the ingredients. And so understanding food from that kind of multifaceted perspective really allows for the creation of a new medium, of a new language. And if you think about it, food is, together with music, maybe the most international, the most universal of all languages.
Yeah. Yeah, we're talking a lot about ultimately what does it mean to be connected to our food and slowing down and relationships and intention. And you mentioned the word Aini. For those listening that don't know, it's a term from the Andean cosmovision that in its essence means reciprocity. That we're not taking more than we're giving. We're not giving more than we're taking. It's an equal harmony and balance in all of our relations. As we're talking about connection, from your perspective, just zooming out a bit, how can a conscious approach to our food be healing for us personally, societally, and for our environment?
I think there's a very basic truth about being human that is that what we eat on a daily basis is the most intimate connection we establish with our bodies, with the world around us, as in the social fabric of the world, our communities, our relationships, and the living world and all life on earth. To me, the art of eating is the art of living. It's as simple as that. And the quest for integrity within that philosophy, to me, it's like the walking each other home. It's like the finding home. It's like the growing of a family. It's like the search for happiness. I feel most alive when I feed my food waste to the hens and at the same time pick up the eggs that are going to make the protein, the fats that I need for sustaining my body in the coming hours after that. And the freshness of those eggs and the connection to the hens, that is what I aspire to. Of course, I cannot eat like that, especially living in a city. I can just try my best. But this is also like the philosophy of a good life. How can I just try my best and really be aware of the amount of dogma with food that with the excuse of, or with the intention of connecting us or being more mindful or being more conscious, is actually disconnecting us, because the realities of food change depending on the place where our bodies find themselves in a particular time. Meaning that it might be more ethical to eat beef when you have someone who lives in right relationship with the animals, or dairy for that matter, than to eat an avocado that comes from the other side of the world in a particular place, right? And you'll say, no, but my ideals are like zero animals, and I want to eat only plants. Yeah, but if the plant is not there, you're making it fly, there's a carbon footprint. Maybe that excess of avocado is fueling a war in Michoacan in Mexico. And part of what you pay for that avocado is actually to buy bullets to defend the market of this multi-billion market of avocados. So what is the alternative there? There's no silver bullet. There's no one answer. And there's a lot of dogma around food. And I feel that it's necessary to cultivate wisdom for that. And for that, you need the techniques, you need the knowledge, you need the self-awareness, you need the sensory training in ways that can truly bring more peace to your life. And at the same time, I don't see many places where folks can learn about this. Definitely not schools, universities, yeah, but like, would you like to study cooking like for 2 or 3 years and all the costs and all that to become a chef? Like, no, you want to have this basic knowledge, just like you want to have a basic knowledge on your body and doing yoga. But there's very few spaces where one can learn about this, and it is of utmost importance, especially in the times that we're living.
We need a school for conscious eating.
We need a school for conscious eating. Yeah, absolutely.
I love how you said, essentially, you said the art of eating is the art of living. And another thing that hits on is just how we do one thing is how we do all things. And we'll circle back to that in a second. But as we're talking about what it might look like being in right relation with our food, how would you sum up the impacts to our world as we're disconnected from our food? What are the impacts to our world when we disconnect from our food?
Yeah. The impact to our world, I think from the moment that we started speaking, there probably around 200,000, 250,000 birds, chicken were killed by machines. It's about 150,000 per 10 minutes, every 10 minutes. There are more animals to feed humans than humans on Earth. And that is polluting waters, it's polluting the air. It's, of course, a very profound ethical question. And the biggest one for me is that machines are doing the job because humans cannot humanely, our nervous systems are not able to kill 100 chicken in a day. You would go mad, you'd go crazy. And actually, there are stories on that I've heard, like in the transition from manual sacrifice to machine sacrifice, which happened in the 60s, 70s due to an increased demand post World War II for animal products. It's our relationship to water, to air, to earth, and even to fire. It is the most, in a way, alchemical decision making that we make on a daily basis. And the kitchen is the only place where all the four elements meet. If you think about it, the only place in the house, right? You have all the elements meeting there, and often energy sources, which are either gas or electricity or wood or oil. Any form of energy just comes in there, right? So we have this kitchen in the house, and every house in theory has a kitchen, and the amount of time that we spend there and the amount of wisdom that we're able to exert is minimal, and hence we are disempowered. Disempowered as in we don't have sovereignty over the world we live in. We don't have sovereignty over our bodies if we don't have that wisdom on how to cook and eat and grow food. And we're disconnected from the earth, simply as that. There's an image I would like to share to close this thought, is that I heard from a First Nation elder in Colombia that the chagra, the garden, the place where you grow food on the side of the village, that place, our garden, is the umbilical cord that connects us to the earth. And of course, you can think of it as the physical and molecular kind of substances that we absorb from nature in order to live. But there is also something very powerful spiritual there. It's our mother. It's her, the great mother, the great spirit, that is feeding us through the umbilical cord when there is no garden. And I'm thinking most of humans today live in a way where we're not connected through the umbilical cord because there's machines tilling the soil, there's machines harvesting, there's machines transporting, there's machines refrigerating, there's machines even coming to you and distributing. Of course, all these operated by humans, but everybody has a mechanical and almost a transactional role in it. The humans that are involved in that do not have that connection. The thing that I was missing when I was working in restaurants, right? That connection, that human connection, that gifting, that giving, and that nourishment that comes with a healthy food system. And so the way I see it is that we're already in the matrix, and this connection for food is actually the matrix. We are connected through a perfusion, right? Like directly in our veins to go at the corner store, at the restaurant, just to get our fix of nutrients. And this is happening in an artificial way. We're not connected with the umbilical cord. We're connected through cables, literally. And I see, of course, this image of the matrix where you have these little humans being useful because they produce energy. And if you think about it, like we are energy in an economic system, we are little pawns in tiny atoms, tiny cells in a macroeconomic system where we're there to consume and to produce energy. But what's keeping us alive is this connection to the machine, to the matrix. And we don't see it as that because it's not in our veins, literally. But when we go to a corner store and get food, we're tapping into the machine. And we're tapping into the machine that is increasingly disconnecting us from Earth. And this machine is mostly fueled by the fossil fuel machine, to the point where what most people think is taste, that is actually flavor, is actually aromas. And so when you taste a strawberry ice cream or a vanilla ice cream, most of those listening right now, we think there's vanilla in there, but it's actually vanillin that is a product of the petrochemical industry, meaning that the aromas that you're sensing, and some people, all they will taste in the form of vanilla, or what they think is vanilla, is actually vanillin that is a derivative from oil. Like you're literally smelling an organic compound that comes from oil. You are fed indirectly oil, and your mind, your consciousness is hacked by the oil industry in so many ways. Very profound. Think about it, that most people live in the illusion, in the matrix, in the Maya, of thinking that we are tasting vanilla when we're not. And this is, predominant in the food industry.
Yeah, that's wild to even extrapolate it further that at the end of the day, we're just eating aroma. Now, you mentioned Colombia, which you carry from your mother, and your father being French and having his farm there. You have two very strong staples around the quality and relationship to food and its role on the global stage. And yet you travel a lot extensively to different cultures. How would you say the notion of conscious eating compares across diverse cultures, especially with societies that are more deep-rooted with their food traditions?
That's a beautiful question. Well, let's take a step back and just acknowledge that we have no clue what consciousness is. It's one of the greatest questions in philosophy, in science. So what is consciousness is maybe what we should first kind of agree on when we are thinking of what conscious eating could be. And in that way, we live in a certain ignorance and in a certain kind of just imagining what consciousness could be, or what living a conscious life could be, and something which some of us kind of strive for, that type of knowledge and wisdom of being. I think that traveling the world and seeing so many cultures has allowed me to just understand that conscious eating could simply be a method, a medium for us to apply the best of the spiritual philosophy that we adhere to. Reciprocity, if we think of the Quichua or Keto cosmovision, Andean cosmovision. The reducing of suffering of all sentient beings, if we think in terms of Buddhism. Gratitude and communion, if we think of let's say, the Judeo-Christian cosmovision. And so whatever we understand by conscious eating is just applied philosophy and applied spirituality, I feel. And it's a practice, it's not a destination. Just like doing yoga every day is probably not going to lead you to enlightenment, but it will make you feel better. It will make you feel more harmony and unity with the world around us and with your body through breath and movement. In the same way, I see conscious eating as the yoga of food or the yoga of eating, where through the act of feeding and breathing, which is something that most of us never think about when we're eating, we'll never breathe in life in general, but the quality of your life depends on the quality of your breathing, as one of our shared masters says. I do think that with this act of eating and the breath that comes with it, we are exercising unity with the world around us. We are exercising unity with all sentient beings, and we're exercising the practice of living a good life and being healthy and celebrating life. So I've never thought about it this way actually, but I do with your question. It makes me really think that conscious eating is just applied philosophy, applied spirituality.
Sit with that one for a bit. Now, I know that you work in an emerging field called gastrophysics. Would you care to define that and then explain how does this fit within the broader picture of our relationship with food and the world that we're in?
This is one of my favorite things in the world. As a little side note, I wanted to be an astrophysicist when I was a kid. And I was fascinated with science because it was a source of truth. And then I ended up not being able to go there and study physics and chemistry, and I went to study cooking. And then 10 years later, I found myself publishing papers in the field of gastrophysics, which one of the definitions that I love the most is by it's on a 2013 paper by Peter Barham. He says that gastrophysics is to gastronomy what astrophysics is to astronomy. So astronomy, you observe the phenomena in the sky. Astrophysics is applying physical and chemical knowledge and models to understand how those movements or why those movements, astronomical movements, are happening in the sky. In the same way, gastronomy is not what we think is like fine dining. Fine dining is just a very tiny part of gastronomy. Gastronomy is our relationship to the gut and to absorbing energy. Gastro, the Greek root gaster, which is the stomach, and nomi, the study of the stomach, the science of the stomach, right? Gastronomy is, in a way, I like to define it as everything that encompasses the relationship between humans and the living environment. So gastrophysics would be the application of physical and molecular models and knowledge to understand and decode the phenomena of gastronomy, meaning of the relationship that humans have with life and how humans feed themselves. And I'm going to read just the definition, the Wikipedia definition, which I think is just perfect for folks to know, is gastrophysics or gastronomical physics is an emerging interdisciplinary science that employs principles with physics and chemistry to attain a fundamental understanding of the worlds of gastronomy and cooking. That is one of the definitions. First of all, this is a very young field of science. Like, we haven't had an integrated field of science to food because it's always been considered a lower art form, a lower practice, just feeding the animal need for nutrition, right? So food has always been considered a craft, not really an art. It's been considered as something that you understand from a scientific perspective, just to sell better products for food safety, etc. But I'd like to believe, and I would love to continue working on the emergence of gastrophysics as the discipline that will teach to kids at school. Like, you go to physics, you go to language, you go to mathematics, you go to biology, and you go to gastrophysics. Which, imagine like the chemistry lab in all schools already has water and gas. Very simple, very easy to implement a curriculum where you would learn different aspects of knowledge, applied knowledge, through cooking at 11 a.m., time before lunch. By cooking an egg, you can teach a 15-year-old about proteins and light. traveling through matter and emotions and chemical reactions. But you can also talk to the 5-year-old with the same recipe. You can teach them about the life cycle of the hen, about nutrition, about heat transfer. And any different dish that you could prepare in gastrophysics class could have this mission of being an embodied knowledge, not just something that you hear and see and try to just pack your brain with information, but actually knowledge, wisdom applied to something that is delicious that I'm going to put in my body. And then as a result, kids and young adults would learn how to feed themselves and would learn how to have sovereignty over their bodies and would learn how to feed their bodies in order for their minds to be efficient, which is a very big problem in nutrition and in universities. And you can't reach peak performance as a human. You cannot reach your full potential if you don't know how to feed yourself. And so gastrophysics to me is all of that and so much more. And very lucky to have participated in that field since 2012, doing research in experimental psychology on the more like multisensory flavor perception and just understanding that as one aspect of gastrophysics. But now I really love advocating for this discipline to continue emerging because I do feel like it can change a lot of things in education.
Now, that is a beautiful future to depict and to work towards. And I do hope that that course exists in every junior high and high school and college level, right next to how to do your taxes.
And know how to love, right?
And know how to communicate and talk about your feelings and talk about death. Yeah. So it seems like there needs to be just a general new type of school that needs to be built.
Yeah.
I'm in. Now I want to rein it in a bit and just get really embodied, really practical. And we think about our day-to-day, waking up. Like you said, we're going to make a series of choices. And often those choices are convenience and speed, especially in the West. And so how can people who have the demands of the day where time can feel like a bully already, how can we, and not only just time, but I don't know if you noticed this, but for your background, you're sitting in natural sunlight and green all around you. I'm sitting with artificial light in a box, completely disconnected from natural light, because I'm in the heart of a city, and it takes me, it's like 8 miles for me to drive to get to organic food. So if I'm in a food desert and I prioritize it, it becomes a mission and a ritual that I enjoy. But most people, I would say, don't have that luxury of time and the expense that comes with it. So with all of these things in mind, what are the little things that we can start to do to shift more towards this intentional relationship that ultimately can bring more balance and harmony and just reduce the harm that our decisions are making?
Yeah. Before I answer the question, I just want to go to something that is just bubbling up very strongly. Is the injustices of the world can be seen in the injustices in the food system. The fact that there are neighborhoods, often marginalized communities, have historically been disconnected from healthy food sources. Some call them food deserts. Other, like food justice, food activists would call it a food apartheid, because it's actually been intentionally designed to be in a particular way. And how can a kid grow to its full potential when they don't have access to healthy food? Healthy food and the right to grow food and have a piece of land should be a human right. After years working in activism, in education, and also with international organizations like the UN, and an idea came of like, what if there was, instead of universal basic income, universal basic nutrition? The baseline of nutrition should be government funded and government given. That would change so much if we didn't have to hustle to have healthy bodies and healthy nutrition for our bodies. And I do think that inherently what I'm saying here is that food is incredibly political. And we don't most of the times when I say, food is political, people are like, what do you mean? Like, that's weird. Yeah, food is the most profound embodiment of politics because it is one of the three pillars, and energy, water, food, that are at the root of governance. Without those three, there's no governance. And we prioritize, of course, the economic forces of those three over the quality of food, of water, and of energy that we get in order to live a good life. Food is inherently political, and I do think that some of the wicked problems that we're having currently in our food system and our relationship to nature and the climate and health issues are all connected to food and all connected to our food system. Now, with that, complex, heavy, right? Like, what do we do? How do we celebrate food on a daily basis? Like, what can I do? And that's the question that that's been very, very present for me. And for the past 5 years, I've been working with a community of patrons that support kind of my work in education and activism with food. And we came up with a guide to conscious eating, 10 steps that you can take, right? It's a philosophical guide, has been translated into 22 languages by activists from all over the world. And you can download it for free on my website. It's charlesxmichel.com/conscious eating. You can see that there. And so there's 10 principles. And those principles are not like, stop eating meat. No, it means, or rather the guide says, eat less meat, eat more plants, rather. It's not about eating less of something. It's about celebrating the plants because they are much more energy efficient. And we need more fiber in our diets anyways. And we need more freshness in our diets. And we need more aliveness in our diets, more chi in the food that we consume. And so that's just one of the 10 points, right? Eat more plants. But I think that that's one way, that's one tool that I would provide. The other one is to exercise presence. I want to invite folks to exercise presence in the act of eating. And what is presence but the quality of our breath and the awareness of our breath, the awareness of our sensations, and the honoring of the moment, the gratitude that comes to the fact that my life is possible because I have this plate of food in front of me, but also in the social context. Who am I surrounded with? How am I connecting with them? Am I looking at my screens while I'm eating? And there goes a very easy to understand form of conscious eating, which is mindfulness, mindful eating. Mindful, or with your mind free, with space in your mind, to dedicate your attention to what's there in front of you. And most likely you will eat less. And most likely you will be more grateful. Just paying attention to your sensations. Something that I apply almost every time I eat, because sometimes I forget. And we're all in the practice of yoga. It's not about being perfect. It's about engaging in a practice. But the first bite of food, the first moment. And it's not just about saying prayer, because you can say prayer and be completely disconnected from your food. The first bite, closing my eyes, taking a deep breath, smelling it, preparing my mouth, salivating. My body starts producing gastric juices. My body is being ready, getting ready to be penetrated by the life substance that is going to give me subsistence, right? It's a big moment, right? You are entering something extraneous inside of your body, the most intimate part of your body, probably the mouth, the tongue, the lips. And that first moment, just doing it in full awareness, in silence, closing your eyes and breathing deep and focusing how it's in the exhale that the sensation expands and it contracts as you inhale. And the aromas do not go into your conscious awareness if you are not chewing, right? So chewing at the same rhythm, at the same speed as you are breathing, right? And it becomes a dance. It becomes an act of beauty, whatever you're eating, right? Before talking about I should be eating this and diets and ethics, just whatever you're eating, just the moment of presence with the fact that this plate of food is continuing life and it's giving you life.
Yeah, to add on to that, one of the practices, rituals that I have almost every meal is as I sit down and I understand this is a relationship of energy. I'm receiving this energy, which means it's going to alchemize and it's going to come out of me in what way. And knowing that it's roughly a 4 to 6 hour window worth of energy, I will connect with what do I want this energy to become in the next 4 to 6 hours? Is this to help bring me clarity and connection? Is this to be creative output? Is this to be just grounding and healing? Like, just more fundamentally or more specifically, just bringing that intention to what is this energy to make its way out into the world for the benefit of all beings. But I like it as a way to also break up the day, rather than you're just going and then you go into the table and then you're going and then you're up and then you're going. And so the day feels like one long moment, when actually, when we stop and create space and quality of that space in between our moments, I feel like that moment right before we take that first bite is really important. And also just thinking about what we can do today is just also asking that question of, is this in season? Like, we're grocery shopping now, right? And everything, whether the quality of it was, whether it's organic or full of pesticides or however, wherever it came from, but just wondering, like, are we eating food that's in season, or are we trying to continue to demand that food is available to us all year long? Because that has major implications. Really tuning into where our food is coming from and what, by buying this, you mentioned the avocado. What does purchasing something ultimately support? And how can we continue to get physically closer to our food sources? Are there any other around the what we're going to eat, the going to getting the food, the pulling people together around food, just the whole journey? Are there any other practices, exercise, rituals that we can kind of adopt today?
I shared at the beginning how I feel that humans have a very evolved sensory system, and we are mostly driven by audio-visual stimulation for our decision making, for our belief systems, even even for what we consider to be beautiful. Like beauty, you would say, or aesthetics are what we can see and we can hear, right? The arts. There's temples for the eyes and for the ears all over, right? Whether it is a concert hall or a museum. But what about the beauty of the so-called lower senses, defined by Aristotle, defined by William James, the father of modern psychology? Lower senses, as in less powerful. To me, the lower senses, touch, taste, and olfaction, are actually the most potent ones in connecting us to what's right underneath us, which is the earth and its spirit and its language. And so I would invite us all to equalize the senses in our decision making, in our perceptions. And equalize meaning, am I choosing this food because it looks good or because it smells good? Am I choosing this food because I was told or because I was told in my gut feeling, intuition? Take one fruit, take the other, and ask your gut, not your mind, right? Feel with your mind and think with your heart. This is a quote from an elder, Taita, from Chile, that I really love. And so, but also make decisions with your gut and trust your gut, because there's a very evolved biochemistry. And we have a neural network the size of a dog's brain, like this big, inside of our guts that are making decisions for us. Mental health issues are often related to the lack of certain nutrients or imbalances in our gut microbiome. The community that we live with most intimately, is millions of cells, of viruses, of microbes, bacteria, some good, some bad. And when there is imbalance in our gut, there is imbalance in our minds and in our hearts. And so it is almost like a representation, a bodily representation of the biome around us. So I would say trusting intuition. I would say looking at the gut, not the mind, because we're manipulated so easily. Humans, like, we think we're clever, but we're really automatic machines in most cases. Most of human behavior is automatic, guided by ease of access and by previous experiences and expectations. And a lot of science kind of shows that very, very profoundly, but most people think they know. And the truth is that we don't. So I guess having that humility of reconnecting to those senses that are those who connect us to Earth. There's a whole kind of research projects around how we're losing our sense of smell. We're becoming dumber, basically, at sensing the world around us. Taste, smell, and touch in particular. Touch is related also, the lack of touch or touch hunger is related to, in some ways, mental health issues. And we are deprivating our senses. We're entering the matrix. We're entering an audiovisual world, a metaverse, where we are increasingly fulfilling the matrix prophecy of an industrialized, economy-driven world where we're losing the connection to the soul of the earth, and we're forgetting what it meant to be human in pre-industrial times. No refrigerator in your home. What would you do if you don't have a refrigerator in your home? How would you live, right? What decisions would you make? Just that one aspect of your home, no refrigeration. How would you live? We did it for 2 million years in this Homo sapiens form, Homo sapiens sapiens. And now what? Like, we can't live without refrigeration. We can't live without a supermarket. We're forgetting how to be human. And I'm very excited to invent a new form of being human with the internet, with technology, with AI, with all of this. But if we forget the essence of what it means to be human, we're entering very risky territory. And I'm concerned for our fate if we disconnect from the earth. Yeah.
There was an Aboriginal elder. I just remember this beautiful clip of him also just saying, I eat for my stomach, not for my mouth. And just all of why you just articulated. And you just talked about, and all in favor of creating the new human and the essence of the human. Just want to close this conversation with, let's encapsulate that. What does being human mean to you?
I aspire to become human. I aspire to live in right relationship with the elements. I aspire to be able to fulfill the biological and spiritual kind of opportunity of continuing life on Earth and reduce suffering. Because we have everything we need to reduce and eliminate all forms of human-made suffering. It's there. There's enough abundance to feed all humans on Earth and to create a good life. Being human to me is realizing that we are nothing and everything at the same time. Just tiny little life forms who gives themselves a lot of importance, traveling on a rock at 220 kilometers per second around an average star in an average galaxy in a maybe infinite universe. Nothing. And at the same time, we get to breathe and leave the universe. Like, we get to be aware of ourselves. We get to understand the nature of life, the nature of the universe. The greatest question in science could be, what is consciousness? And the other one is, why life? Are we alone in the universe, right? And so being human to me is learning how to ask the right questions and establish joy and celebration on a daily basis so we can continue life on Earth and we can leave a beautiful legacy for the universe, because at some point this sun is going to stop. What's the mission of humans on this Earth? Some say that it's seeding life all over, but maybe just like a human life begins and stops, maybe humanity will just begin and stop. Now, yeah, I just want to, be a good brother, be a good son, be a good friend. And what is good is up to whatever we decide to believe in. And I love celebrating with food. I love celebrating with friends. I love the communion that is present there. And I feel that there's no a more beautiful world if we don't shift our understanding on the role of food. And that's kind of my little stone to the edifice of humanity. And I would love, my little grain of sand is around that aspect.
Mm-hmm. So beautiful. And you have been a great friend and son and brother, and communing with you around food has been one of my greatest joys in our relationship. You've taught me so much, and you continue to teach so much. And you've mentioned them, and I'm going to mention them here, and we'll put links in the show notes. Join the Patreon, join the conversation, like have direct access in the questions that you have and wanting to evolve how to bring this wisdom to the plate and to your community. That's all unfolding on his Patreon. I highly recommend following it. And also he broadcasts on Instagram. Also follow him there, Charles X Michel, yes?
Charles X Michel. And I'm also more and more wanting to disconnect from the virtual world, and Patreon has been amazing, but I'm also hosting experiences around what I would love to see as curricula in universities and schools. We're practicing it in 1 week long events or 3-day long events. I'm supporting people with disordered eating, supporting folks with disconnecting to reconnect and understand, this practice of the yoga of eating, and a lot of different aspects that I'm super grateful to be able to share.
And it'll be a treasure and a blessing for anybody who gets to go and participate in any of those. Having been to many of his circles myself, and I will say, if you ever have an opportunity to sit and learn how to taste water, your mind will be blown. Thank you so much, Charles. Much love. Thank you for this conversation today. Many blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for Human Being, and thank you so much to our guest, Charles Michel. Special thank you for everyone who subscribes to Catalysta on Patreon, where contributors can access merch, bonus programs, and more. Human Being was edited by Ashley Cortesano and mixed by David Tedesco. Our music was composed by Philip Glass and performed by the Dublin String Quartet. The publisher is Done Vegan Music. Our executive producers are Chicky Munch and Benny Bunny Munch, with assistance from Ed Goldberg and Gerald Gerbil. You can find the current schedule of Catalysta podcasts and sign up for our weekly email at catalysta.net. And if you enjoyed Human Being, please add, comment, like us on your favorite podcast platform. This is Kyle Kesterson, signing off from the studios at Catalysta Centrale. See you next time.